Matt here with Keeping a YYC. Today we're joined by Jesse Vandewal with Grizzled Bear. How are you today, Jesse?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing pretty good, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. We'll get right into it, and we'll have you tell us a little bit about your business, Grizzled Bear.
Sure, yeah. So Grizzled Bear is it's a brand that we created for men. It was one of those things when we first started looking at the fashion industry or the apparel industry. We got looking at things and realized there wasn't too much stuff out there for guys. There is, obviously, there is enough, but there wasn't too much, and especially on a local level. And when we first started, it was one of those things where I figured, okay, we'll play with the brand, we'll play with the concept, and we'll kind of go from there. And so we started off and we ordered a few samples that were just like off the shelf type products from a lot of the standard blank t-shirt companies and that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing is that as we were testing all these things and looking at all these things, I always kept coming back to the same issues I've always had. And for me personally, I'm not an overly tall guy, but I'm 6'1", and I have a long sleeve length. I've got a 37 sleeve length, and I was always having problems being between sizes. So I was always either a large that fit perfectly, or I'd have to size up to an XL to get extra length and that kind of stuff. And I was finding the same thing over and over again with these off-the-shelf type products. And so at that point, we decided that if we were going to do this, if we were going to create this company and go forward with things, we weren't just going to play around with the brand. We were actually going to go start like at the very beginning and redevelop patterns and redevelop sizing and redevelop everything that we had from beginning to end. And one of the best parts about that is that I was able to fix everything that I didn't like about clothes. So all the sizing issues, any length issues, any shrinkage issues, because you typically buy something new and you're scared to wash it, or you do wash it and you're donating it somewhere, or you're just getting cheap clothes because you don't want to spend too much if you're always running into those kinds of issues. And so I figured, well, here's an opportunity for us to start from the beginning, and we'll work our way through everything and try and fix everything that would come to mind. So yeah, a little bit about us then is that we do focus on a longer fit, a taller fit, but one misconception that we don't do is we don't do big. So sometimes when people hear taller, they automatically think big and tall, but we're not a big and tall apparel. We stick with a classic casual fit. But and we do classic casual styles, lots of t-shirts and hoodies and that kind of stuff. But it's all with premium materials, really soft Pima cottons and French terries and stuff like that. And so we just tried to put everything we could into it, and without going too crazy. And we tried to keep the branding a little more subtle as well. We didn't want it. A lot of companies will kind of do the big logos all over the place, and we didn't appreciate that as much. There's a time and place for that, of course, but we wanted to keep it as simple and as classic style as possible. So yeah, a little bit about us, just nice rugged apparel, I guess.
So how have you tackled the issue of the sizing, as you mentioned, exactly? So have you changed the nomenclature at all? And also with things such as shrinkage, how have you dealt with that? Because I deal with the same thing. I'll have a perfect fitting shirt, and then I'll dry it just a little bit too long. I'll dry it for a little bit and then hang dry the rest, but I'll dry it a little bit too long in the dryer, and suddenly the shirt is just no good anymore. It doesn't fit. So how did you deal with that? What have you done?
It's actually a really difficult process in the manufacturing end of it. And what happens is a lot of companies will advertise that their clothing has been pre-shrunk. But what typically happens is that they'll pre-shrink the fabric beforehand. So when you still have the fabrics on the big bolts and the big rolls of it, they'll wash it and they'll claim it as pre-shrunk.
Mhm.
But the issue is that as it dries, as they even roll it back up, and the cutting and sewing process and all that kind of stuff, it stretches back out and it warps back out. So for a lot of companies, when they say it's pre-shrunk, people will run into that issue thinking, oh, okay, it's good. I'll just throw it in the dryer and I should be fine. And then they ruin the shirt or the pants or whatever it is they have. And what we found, and the difficult part of it is you've got to be able to launder the item, the garment, after it's been sewn together. So you go through, you cut, you sew, you do everything there is to do with it, and then you launder it a time or two after it's been sewn together, and that actually takes the shrinkage out. The difficulty with that is finding out those measurements and figuring out all of those measurements to take this funky, warped, oversized pattern to make sure that it shrinks up properly so you get the sizes that you want. And that we worked really closely with the manufacturer and even our pattern designers and stuff like that in the process. And so that was a really big learning curve for us, and it was a big job to tackle. But it was one of those things where it was just one of those issues that I thought, you know what, if we're going to do it, I'm going to fix it. And because I know there are other people that have the same problems, and we're going to tackle it. So yeah, that's what we did.
Okay, so with some trials and tribulations, you got it now. Primo, how your shirt comes, how your clothing comes is how it's going to stay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So and it's funny because we'll even hear back from customers and they'll be saying like, oh, we wash it in cold water, we still hang dry it and all this kind of stuff. And they're too scared to try it. And I'm saying it's okay. Just warm water's all right. You do cold if environmental purposes or whatever people's motivations are. Do cold if you want. Do it on a medium temperature in the dryer. Like, you don't have to go to extremes or anything like that, but you don't have to be scared. You don't have to babysit this stuff and hang it up. You can just throw it right in, because that's the way I do my laundry. And that's the way I wanted to make sure that it was going to work, that I could just throw it in and not have to babysit it.
You should put some videos up of you with your own new clothing and
That's
wash it on warm, wash it on hot, and dry it fully, and put it on again and show it looks the same to prove to people. Because I'm the same. I wouldn't believe that the shirt would be the same if I did all that. I wouldn't believe you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're looking into. So we haven't been around all that long, but we have been going for, we've been selling in the market for about a year and a half now, a little over a year and a half, I guess. And most of that, like, we do it through our website, and which we haven't focused on our website as much, but which we're taking a refocus into that right now. But we've gone to a number of trade shows and some farmers markets and just a few events around the city. And so we've been able to get a lot of good face-to-face time with a lot of our customers. And it is a lot of that. I don't want to say that it sounds like a marketing ploy or like, oh, I'm just telling you what you want to hear, just to buy the product. But the people that have tried and tested it out, and everybody that isn't afraid to throw it in the dryer, they've been pleasantly pleased and surprised even. we've gotten a lot of really good response from that. So it's good. It's good. And yeah, sorry, but yeah, getting back to the videos and stuff, that's one of those things that is on the horizon. We're still struggling with working a lot of social media and stuff, and we're trying, but that is part of our plan to eventually start doing some videos. And because we find, and as you're probably aware, doing a lot of these types of interviews, is that videos really resonate with people, and it's a lot simpler. And if you want to reach customers, you can write it all out. You can have pages of content, but nobody wants to read. Nobody wants to put that time and energy in. So a little video is definitely the way to go, and that's definitely the direction that we want to head in. So this is probably helping me out. It'll help me maintain a little more accountability.
Yeah,
The more
okay.
people see this, the more they'll be like, okay, we're expecting videos. And so it'll put more pressure back on me to get those videos out and get it going. But so it's good.
We'll make sure we stay on your case. We'll call you once a week or so.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Cool, that's really exciting. We'll get on to the next question I have for you, which is, what are you doing to adapt in this current environment?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that, a little bit of the rant before, was that we were finding that we were doing very well when we'd start to head to these markets and whatever trade show we were doing or what have you. And so selling in person was moving along really well for us. So we didn't take as much, we didn't put as much effort into the website as we should have. And because we were always seeing results when we would do a show, we're handing out cards, we're making a sale, and then, or sorry, a customer would maybe buy one shirt, and then afterwards they'd come back on the website and say, oh, okay, I now know my size, I know that I like this stuff, and then maybe order a couple things after that. So for us, we were looking at it and just being like, okay, well, the website's doing fine. It picks up every time we do a show, and things are great. Well, all of a sudden you come into the environment that we're in for 2020, and that hit a brick wall really hard because all of a sudden our main revenue stream was just completely cut right off. And for all of the things that we thought would still continue with the customers, they're like, don't get me wrong, they're still coming in, but it's not as much or as frequent as it was when we were able to sell and talk to people in person. So now we're taking a look at that, and we're trying to reevaluate and adjust with our website, and really try and figure out what we want to do for advertising now, for social media, for a lot of that kind of stuff. We're looking at starting some email campaigns and those types of things, which was another learning curve for us. When we first started out, we weren't using a sales system that allowed us to collect any emails. So we didn't have a way to reach out to our customers. The only time we heard from people is when they reached out to us, and which, like, has been amazing for us. We've had a number of people reach out just to say how much they like our stuff, because nobody ever does that. People will enjoy their stuff, whatever product it is that they have, and they'll be, oh yeah, this is great. The only time you really reach out is if you're having issues, or if you have a complaint, or there's something wrong. And so, yeah, we were in a tough position because we could only interact with the people that had reached out to us. And so we've since changed that up. We've since started using different systems and that kind of stuff so that we can interact with the customers a lot better. And that's made a world of difference for us. So it's been good. But yeah, all the little things you learn and the little things you need to adapt to along the way, and kind of try and tackle that steep learning curve as you're getting it up and going. It's fun and stressful.
Doesn't need to be done overnight. You got some time.
That's it exactly, right? Yeah, that's it exactly. That's the concept. You for me anyway. I like the idea of taking time, but for me, I want to have it done, and I want to get it done right from the get-go. And so that's the pressure you put on yourself, I guess, or I put on myself. So.
Cool. So what can people do right now to support their local businesses in general?
Yeah, I'm sure you've probably heard this response a million times now, but it's all the little things. Like, first and foremost, from a business owner, the best way you could do it is to buy from us. Like, hands down, that's number one.
Simple answer.
Yeah, absolutely. After that, though, some of those posts and some of the signs that you see around where it just says, if you simply like and share posts and tell friends and that kind of stuff, that is like, that kind of stuff does mean a lot to us as business owners. So it's not even necessarily that you're going to buy a product from us, but maybe if you share one of our posts, then maybe your father or your cousin or someone, or maybe someone that you went to school with, or someone that's just not necessarily top of mind, they might be in the area where it's like, oh, I actually need a new one of these or a new one of those. So those kinds of small things, liking, sharing, all that kind of stuff, telling your friends if you have purchased a product, reviews. That's another thing that we're just starting to collect too, or our reviews on our products. So any good reviews that people are willing to share. It's a lot of that kind of goodwill, kind of pass it forward type stuff that really means a lot to us, because as a new company like us, as an existing company that's been around for 10, 15 years, it's always one of those things that helps, because companies can advertise, and people can advertise, and we can try and get the word out as much as possible, but it doesn't mean anything until you hear it from a friend, or you see it from someone you know, or you can read a good review that says, oh, this is the most amazing thing ever, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's probably a super cliche answer, but it's the reality of it. So yeah.
It carries more weight coming from other people, coming from customers, coming from a friend. That just has more weight when people see it from that.
Exactly. And the other thing is that you don't have to be some crazy social media influencer. Like, we've worked with some influencers before and haven't got the same amount of traction as we have from someone that only has a couple hundred followers. Like, it's really amazing to see how much people have an influence on smaller circles.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when it comes from some of those larger influencers, sometimes it can just become white noise, or just content that people just scroll through or consume. But when it comes to smaller circles of influence, I guess the people that have 200 followers or 300 followers or 1,000 or whatever that case may be, sometimes we've gotten a lot more traction out of that than we have the ones that have tens of thousands of followers. So yeah, share away, like away, post away, reshare posts, and tell friends. Just start talking.
Perfect. Well, we'll definitely be doing that. So
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of stuff too. Like it's the more you can reach out, the more you can start networking, and the more you can start joining different groups like your own, and really getting a feel for other businesses and other business owners and that kind of stuff. Like yeah, it all helps. So
absolutely. So my last question for you is, do you have any tips and tricks you can share in relation to your expertise?
the thing that I always fall back on, and it's funny because I went back to school. I have a background in the oil industry, and as a tradesperson, I'm an electrician, and a few of those other things. And I went back to school and got a business degree, the full 4-year commitment, full-time school, all that kind of stuff. And my 3 biggest takeaways from it, I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot. But the 3 biggest takeaways I got from it is that, for one, if you have a good product, 2, if you have a good customer experience, and then 3, if you have good customer service. If you have those 3 things, those are my 3 key pillars that we run Grizzled Bear off of, and that I try to implement throughout the business and throughout the company. I find if you have those 3 pillars that I call them, you'll start to resonate with customers and with people, because that's really what it is. Because we're all, whether you own a business or not, we're all customers, we're all people, we all go through the same things, we all have to buy clothes, we all have to buy our necessities and our wants and those kinds of things. But if you're going to hold up those 3 things in a business, then you'll really hit it off, and you'll hit it off with people. It's not going to happen overnight. It's gonna take time, and I don't want to be eating these words in a few years and just be like, oh, it didn't work out. But I do find that the response we've gotten so far from our little adventure with this is that maintaining those 3 key principles, it's really meant a lot to people. And that's what it's about, because you make a lot of good connections, you make a lot of good personal connections, and you'll get your fans out there. You'll get, like, we've had people order almost every single product we have in every single color we have, and it's fantastic. And it's one of those things where when you get those kinds of fans and those kinds of people, it really hits home to me as a business owner, because it justifies and it validates all of that behind the scenes work, all of those decisions that come up that you have no idea about until you actually jump into it. Because a lot of people, for us, they'd look at it and they'd be, oh, well, a t-shirt is a t-shirt or a hoodie is a hoodie. How difficult is that? But once you start talking about different stitching and different sizing and different materials, and how you want this adjusted and how you want that adjusted and how this feel has to hit home, and just all of the stuff that you have no idea about until you actually cross that bridge. But yeah, it feels good, and that's part of what it's about too.
Yeah, it makes it worth all that effort. It makes it worth all the more challenging customers as well, to have those really, those customers that really have a great experience with you. It just makes it all worthwhile.
Exactly. And like, it's one of those things where the happier they are, the happier you are. And we have one of our customers, he's one of the best customers we had. He just had a response to us, like, in discussion with him, because they'll come out to the trade shows, they'll come say hi, they'll continually be looking for new product and stuff like that. But before he came across us, he said he would go to Costco and he'd pick up his pack of 3 t-shirts and just didn't really care about anything, like about clothes or anything like that. And since then, he's one of those guys that's almost purchased everything we have. But he's like, oh, I'm actually excited to wake up and figure out what I'm going to do and wear today and all this kind of stuff. And that kind of response, that kind of stuff isn't necessarily what I have in my mind when I'm doing this. Like, yes, I want to help. I want to fix all the issues that I have. But when you connect with people like that and help them out, and they didn't even know they had that kind of issue or problem, or were missing that in their lives, that's when it hits home on a whole nother level, where it's the stuff that you don't think about that comes at you and you're like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. So it's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling.
That's awesome. We're all people.
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's all the questions that I had prepared for you, Jesse. We asked that you end the interview by looking at the camera, stating your name your business, and just asking the people watching to keep it local, keep it YYC.
Absolutely. I'm Jesse Vandewal with Grizzled Bear, and it's super important to keep it local and keep it YYC.